The second day of my journey through the southern part of Oregon and into the desert had been an adventure for sure. Now, with the sunlight fading behind the mountains to the west, I found myself over 100 miles from the nearest town in a remote desert area called Mickey Basin. This would be my home for the next 11 days, while I filmed an art project my friend Bill Weatherspoon and some of his friends would be creating. Just as Bill and his son Miles finished helping me set up my tent, Bill's friends from Fairfield, Iowa, his hometown, drove into the campsite. Bob Orline, Tony Lauer, and their friend David, which I would find out later were all artists in their own right. I was introduced to them, and later, while we sat beside our campfire, Bill began laying out the plans for the next day. This was the first time I actually understood what the art project was going to be. To my surprise, it had nothing to do with painting on canvas. It was going to be an ancient design made as an earth carving, 1/4 of a mile in diameter, and the canvas was the barren dry lake bed here in Mickey Basin. The design, called Yantra, is a source of inspiration and is revered in India. The crew would be using blueprints that Tony and Bill had created, along with a lot of aluminum wire, flags, strings, and wooden stakes to mark their lines. Once they were sure the lines were correct, they would then use a garden plow to cut furrows to complete it. They thought it would take 10 to 12 days to finish. The magnitude and complexity of it and its size was breathtaking. At 7 a.m. the next morning, we all walked out into the dry lake bed to begin the work. Bill had decided that ancient principles would be used to correctly lay out and make the design. He decided where on the dry lake bed the middle of the design he called the bindu would be placed. A pole was placed at the center. Then wire was fastened to the pole and tied to a stake so that a circle could be drawn around the pole on the ground. The crew of Bob, Tony, and David then marked the lines as a ceremony depicting the beginning of the work of creating the Yantra. This pole and the circle around it would allow the sun, which was just rising above the mountains in the east, to cast a shadow from the pole across the circle to the west. Then, as the sun moved to the west, in the afternoon, it would cast a second shadow to the east on the circle line. These points would mark an exact east-west line that would be used to create the 1/4 of a mile design. This would take most of the day as the sun moved from east to west. Bill and the crew then spent time reviewing the blueprints and where wooden stakes would be placed while making and marking lines. The crew began pulling aluminum wire from that center pole 1/8 of a mile in several directions that would begin the marking process.
Almost to the edge? It's the longest one is 525, so it's only 75 feet in. Diagonal.
That evening and several more days would be needed to complete the marking lines before the final plowing could begin. Each evening, as the sun moved behind the mountains to the west, we all embraced the pleasant breezes that came with cooler temperatures.